guys, welcome back to the channel where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. So this trial went pretty darn quick. Okay, today the state rested. The defense put on their case, which was pretty small, and closing arguments. Then it went to the jury, and we have a verdict. Now, you guys did see I posted it on the community tab, the verdict, and I'm going to play that portion as well as an interview with Kayla and her husband, the parents of Uriel and Ezra. And if you'd like me to go back through any of the testimony, her interrogation, Tracey Nix, let me know. I can definitely do that later this week. But without further ado, let's get to the verdict.
All right, defense, please rise. Mrs. Nix, please rise. All right, we're going to go ahead and publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the 10th Judicial Circuit of Florida in and for Hardy County, State of Florida versus Tracey Howard Nix, case number CF 22-000-A000-XXW. Verdict form. We, the jury, find as follows as to count one of the charge. The defendant, Tracey Howard Nix, is not guilty. We, the jury, find as follows as to count two of the charge. The defendant, Tracey Howard Nix, is guilty of leaving a child in a motor vehicle in excess of 15 minutes, causing great bodily harm.
Don't read anymore.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fletcher, you wish the jury to be polled?
No, Your Honor.
State, you wish the jury to be polled?
No, Your Honor.
I'm going to release the jury.
No objection.
All right, all rise. Members of the jury, I want to give you your final instructions. Hold on one second. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and consideration of this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges enjoyed by jurors, such as yourself. No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and votes should remain their private affair as long as they wish it. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. Although you are at liberty to speak with anyone about your deliberations, you are also at liberty to refuse to speak to anyone. A request to discuss either your verdict or your deliberations may come from those who are simply curious, from those who might seek to find fault with you, from the media, from the attorneys, and elsewhere. It will be up to you to decide whether to preserve your privacy as a juror. I want to thank you on behalf of the citizens of Hardy County and Polk County for spending your time with us. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. You may be excused.
Even note.
All right, all once they leave, have a seat, and I'll have the defendant proceed to the podium with their attorney. Okay. Right there. Okay. Ms. Nix, and that's your attorney, Mr. Fletcher. Everyone can have a seat. Mr. Fletcher, Tracey Nix, having been found guilty by a jury as to the charge of leaving the child unattended in the vehicle for more than 15 minutes, contained in case number CF 22-289, I now find you to be guilty of the offense. State, what's your position on remand or bond?
Your Honor, she's been convicted at this point. I would ask that she be taken into custody.
Defense, position on remand or bond?
Your Honor, I request that she be allowed to be out on bond until we have a sentencing hearing. Will be requesting a less than guideline sentence. I will request, based on my experts, that you partially heard that her sentence be below guidelines. I have also had my office contact the bail bondsman. He is willing to remain on the bond. I can tell you that as an officer of the court. There's plenty of time to incarcerate her. I do need her also to be able to prepare for sentencing.
All right, state anything further?
And further, Judge, she's been on pretrial release for over 2 years. There hadn't been a second's problem with her. She's been to every court appearance that we've had, and I see no reason to remand her at this time.
State anything further?
No, the state stands by its previous position.
All right, a sentencing date of April 3rd at 8:30 a.m., does that work with state?
We will make it work.
Defense, does that work with defense?
Same as the state, will make it work.
All right. At this point in time, based upon the jury verdict of guilty, I'm remanding you into custody, Ms. Nix. You are to be with the sheriff pending the pre-sentence investigation report by the Florida Parole and Probation Commission. Your bond is hereby revoked. You will be held at no bond. I hereby order the Florida Parole and Probation Commission to prepare a pre-sentence investigation report upon the defendant and furnish same to the court as soon as practicable. You will appear April 3rd, 2025 in the Hardee County Courthouse at 8:30 a.m. I've set aside a full day for the sentencing. I'd ask the defense and the state be prepared to present their arguments and testimony that they feel is appropriate to have this court sentence Ms. Nix in accordance with this verdict. Anything further, state?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further, defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, all rise. I'm going to get off the bench.
All right. So, I personally am frustrated. I'm frustrated with the verdict. But having some time to think about it, I understand why the jury went with not guilty for the manslaughter charge and only for the negligence of leaving little Uri in the car over 15 minutes, more like hours. The issue is the history of Grandma Tracey was not allowed into the trial. I believe if the jury had known about her brother Ezra, who somehow got out of Grandma's home less than a year before and drowned behind their home in a retention pond, I believe that there would have been a very different verdict in this case. I am glad that she's got something. She has something that they didn't find her completely, innocent of things. Now, it does seem like it's possible she could get, from what I'm understanding, there's a lot of discrepancies. I know Court TV was stating only like 60 days in jail. I'm seeing up to a year. So there's a little discrepancy in that. I'm trying to verify that information. But she can get like up to a $500 fine. She can get up to 6 months of probation, mandatory parenting classes, community service, and child protective services could become involved if they're not already. I definitely think that she should not be around any of her grandchildren alone, ever again. At least not until they're adults. I'm sure that Kayla will not allow her to be around her two. And Rebecca, her other daughter, I wouldn't be surprised if she is also in that same frame of mind. Now, afterwards, the parents of little Uri spoke to the media.
Hi. I have no idea how to start this. Help me, Kylie.
Thank you guys so much for taking the time. I know this is going to sound basic and yet complicated, but what went through your mind as the verdict was read?
I was relieved to hear that there was going to be accountability and ownership and a conclusion to this part of this story. One of the things that we have struggled with through this whole case has been the exclusion of my other story, which is my son that drowned in her care. And so for us, this is a win for Uri. But I have a son named Ezra, and he has not been spoken of. And he died in her care. And I don't have any accountability or any answers for that. And I continue to look for those answers to what happened in that case and why that case was not worthy of prosecution at that time. So we're going to be going back in with the state and having a few more conversations to see. But in this moment, we are relieved. The daughter and me had a very hard time with her being taken, and I ended up stepping aside for that moment. And it isn't something that I would ever call a win for me. It is a win for justice for my daughter. And we are grateful to the jurors that spent their time, to all the experts, to all the police and EMTs and every person that played a hand in this trial. We are truly grateful for your consideration and your time and the energy you guys have spent, as well as you guys from the media. I'm truly grateful for giving my story a voice. And
So, question for you folks. I'm seeing a number of comments stating, why would Kayla leave Uri with her grandmother, her mama, after what happened to Ezra less than a year before? I think that's a tough one, but from what I understand, the family went into counseling, and it was assumed, as one would think, that the death of Ezra was a horrific accident. Yes, it was negligence, but it was a horrific accident. And they forgave Tracey for what happened. That doesn't mean that there's not still hurt in mom and dad and the rest of the family, but I do think that was a big part of it. And Grandma Nix also did spend time watching the baby, as I stated during the trial. She watched baby Uri a number of times before she forgot her in that car. So it wasn't as if that this was the first time that she was alone with Uriel.
And giving our kids a chance for the world to see that they were incredibly wanted and loved and valued to us.
To hear the guilty on one count, not guilty on another, how do you guys view that?
For it being not guilty, it does sting. I'm thankful though that we did get something. I didn't want to walk out of there and see her walk away like she's been for the past 2 years and just being out and about. I was glad to see that the jury did see our side of it, even though they didn't push for the maximum sentence. It was still, like I said, a form of justice.
Well, and as her daughter, I've struggled the whole time with understanding why there couldn't just be that ownership and what did happen. Like, why did we do this? The destruction that has come from this process is pretty unfathomable as well. You know, my kids are dead, but I've lost a lot more than that.
My son's lost a brother, my son's lost a sister.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? We look at it from that perspective, and it's,
we advocate for our children.
Talking with the assistant state attorney, was there any indication on what she was found guilty on and how much time she could potentially be looking at for a sentence?
He was saying the maximum for the conviction that she had was 5 years, but he was very unsure whether or not they were going to arrest her.
Go
there.
into further details and all of the. It kind of played out in front of us.
But the thing
we didn't
is,
have much time to take that
the
in.
judge knew of my son's story. You know what I mean? The judge was very familiar with it, and I think that had to play in it. Even though the jury didn't know, the judge was very familiar with it, and so
her defense was prepared to shut down a case containing Ezra, which is why they had so many hearings, and ultimately he was excluded from this trial.
Over the last couple days, I mean, there were so many moments and obviously so many emotions. I'm wondering if there are any particular moments that stick out to each of you as you were hearing person after person come up and testify.
I was deeply saddened when my sister had to testify. This trial process has been complicated, but it broke my heart to see her and to have it brought back to memory that there was personal events in their life that day that she had damaged in her world as well. And I adore my son, or my nephew, Aiden. And I hate so deeply that he's traumatized by this, including the court process, including all of this, because he's a teenager. And I think that I struggled the most with her testimony, and also just listening to the recording of my mom, I think, go on a long time about where she was going,
And the fact
what
that
was she gonna do, and never hearing, oh my God, Yuri, oh my God, my granddaughter, where's my granddaughter, what happened to her?
It was her keeping the information from us instead
concern.
of, you know what I mean, instead of telling us. That was.
And we are happy ultimately with what the state provided for us in terms of this case with Ezra, or with Yuri. And I continue to look for a way to address my son Ezra's issue, because it's something I feel worthy of attention.
How does the family move on from here? I mean, this whole thing is absolutely tragic. Yeah. How do you guys move on from there?
We got our son Asher, and we just had a newborn. She is fixing to be 5 months old now, and so we focus on those, and we focus on building. We are always going to be thinking of our children, but I can't neglect my son that I have, and I'm not going to hurt them. It's a day at a time, in a sense.
And when it comes to my family, I mean, that is complicated. In this process, due to certain circumstances, I was already pretty well distanced from them. There are some family members I haven't spoken to in years, and that breaks my heart, and I would want nothing more for that to be different. But the damage has been felt in that way greatly, and I don't know how we recover. I want that. I want us to have a family, but right now it seems very complicated. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. Absolutely.
I think there's never, this is not going to be I'm trying to think how to word this. There's not going to be a happy place, a feel-good place for Kayla. I think she expressed that in the interview. She felt, awful when she saw her mom being handcuffed and let out of the courtroom as her child. I mean, anyone would be heartbroken at seeing that. But then you have her longing for justice for her babies that were taken far, far too soon because of the negligence of her mother, their grandmother. So I guess any sort of justice is something. I do believe that Tracey Nix needs a lot more help. Whether or not she has dementia or anything else, something is not right in her head for her to fall asleep, forget about one child, and even more so, to drive home from a restaurant, and less than 15 minutes later, they said, 10, 11 or so minutes later, park your vehicle at your home and get out and forget for hours. While you play with the dog and practice your piano, you forget about your 6-month-old granddaughter in the back seat. Something is very, very wrong with her, and I guess being put in jail is justice as far as the criminal aspect goes, but considering I think she's there's something just not right in that head. And I think she definitely needs counseling. I don't know if the judge has the ability to require that, or if not, highly recommend it at her sentencing in April. I don't know, again, what areas, have some leniency as far as the judge is concerned, and what areas he can't do anything on. So it looks like she may get from a year up to 5 years in jail. And, we all know that that will probably be less if for good behavior. But again, I think this is such a tragedy. And to have it happen twice to one family, it's just, the words can't describe, words can't do anything but just, this whole thing just breaks my heart. And I know it breaks everyone else's heart, but yeah. But please let me know your thoughts in the comments. This is a hard one. I think it was a short trial, but it was definitely one of the toughest that I've watched. All right, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the day. And most of all, stay safe.